elevate. The stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, that's why I couldn't levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. When you elevate.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's yours truly, Devin Gonzalez, as always. And today we got a special guest for you, Josh Thomas. He is the host of the Do Zone podcast, as well as the owner of Factor One. He specializes in helping business owners with their sales systems. And honestly, I was actually on his podcast not too long ago, and I thought bringing him on would be a huge benefit for you guys. He has a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much, Josh, for coming on today.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. I do know some things. I don't know all things, but I know just enough to know just how little I know.
Hey, I mean, that's the first step, right? You know, having that sense of humility and admitting that you don't know everything so that you can continue to grow and to learn, right?
That's the idea. I had to, I have a little Post-it note here for those of you who are on video. And I had to learn this lesson the hard way. And it says, I don't know if you can see it, but it says, I had to get really smart to sound this dumb.
Wow. Honestly, that actually is, it's deeper than it sounds simple, but it's deeper than you think.
You know, and here's the gleaming example of it, right? And I started this entrepreneur thing a long time ago, and I'm a pretty smart guy, you know, and so I write a lot, and I write and I write and I write, and I used to write as a weapon, and I would create tactical nukes. And I would bring my tactical nukes to these knife fights and be like, words, you know, and I would just slay people with my words. And then I realized that was a huge waste of energy most of the time. And it completely vaporized and burned everybody out most of the time because it's a tactical nuke, man. And so what I realized is when you're going to have a knife fight, bring just like a bigger knife because at least the fight makes sense at that point. At least you can gain something from it. And so when you're having a conversation with somebody, I figured out even the smartest people in the world, Devin, they really appreciate it when you don't make them think too hard.
That's true.
And when I look back at the words that I wrote and I had this realization, I started changing the way I communicated. I look back at the words that I wrote versus the words that I would write now, and it was like, wow, that's dense. Because now I just basically speak ape. You know, like there's an app on the internet called I think it's not the Hemingway app, where you just take your words and you put them in there, and it'll like help you get it down to like a 6th grade level or something. When you start doing that exercise over and over and over again, you realize that most of the time you're just overcomplicating everything. So simplify it. Speak ape. We're apes.
Do you think, I mean, going into that, I mean, I completely agree with you. Do you have the thought process behind that, you know, with that sticky note and everything, that becoming that smart, it's like, you know, using big words and stuff. Yeah, you sound intelligent, but at the same time, do you grasp the concept enough that you can explain it and dumb it down so that everyone can explain it?
And that's really the key. A lot of this came from, I spent years with one of my clients who sold a very, very complicated, it was a training for a very complicated process. He was teaching people how to buy apartment buildings by using other people's money and pooling it, raising capital, and buying an entire apartment complex. That sounds hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of steps involved, and it's overwhelmingly complicated. But there were kind of two sorts of people I would run into. There were the people who were, I called him Ned Know-It-All. Ned Know-It-All shows up and he throws out all this jargon. He wants to make sure that you know how smart he is. Like, oh, well, the blah, 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 and jargon, just like industry terms, and they're tossing everything around, trying to sound smart. But what they're really hiding is the fact that they don't know much and they don't have any experience. And then the other kind of person I would run into was called Humble Harry. These are my avatars for, people that we would sell to. We had Ned Know-It-All, and then we had Humble Harry. And Humble Harry would always come in and say, I just want to do this right. I know there's a lot of things to learn, but help me understand the basics of how this works. And Humble Harry was my customer. Ned Know-It-All was always like, how much longer do I have to put up with this? I got to get this guy off the phone because he's not going to buy anything because he's using those words as a shield and a defense for his own insecurities.
Do you think that like that same aspect of like the Ned Know-It-All or someone that uses, big terminology only to elevate themselves in a superior manner in their eyes is almost the same mindset as people that buy flashy things for the sole purpose of trying to elevate their status?
I think that's a great parallel. We use flashy words to elevate our status. And if you think about the books, like, let's do a little exercise. What's your favorite, list off your favorite 2, 3, 4 books? What are the titles that come to mind?
Dichotomy of Leadership, Ray Dalio Principles, Traction.
Give me 2 more.
Those are my top 3 off the top of my head.
Dichotomy of Leadership, Principles, Traction. Those are really simple ideas. I can give you one of my favorite books that's sitting right here. Vivid Vision. There's another book that comes to mind. Who, Not How. There's another book on my shelf. Atomic Habits. These are simple ideas that people can really latch on to. And the simpler the idea is, the simpler it is for somebody else to grasp it and understand it. And it's almost like, I know if a book's going to be good by if I can read the title and figure out what the book's about. Like if I can just read the title instead of the book and still get the lesson, that's the ultimate simplicity, right? I bought the book Who Not How just as a reminder that I just need to find somebody to do this and not figure out how to do it. I don't need to read the book to know that. I just put it on my shelf as a reminder.
No, definitely. And that even goes into if you can catch the attention in simple phrases. I read and I had him on the podcast, Justin Prince. He wrote a book called Be the One. It's right from the title, you're okay, be the one. I am the one. But when you actually dive into the book, then it's goes more into depth, but you never really goes into the psychology and all the science behind it. You could explain it in layman's terms and still pack value and crazy, value punches.
Yeah. And here's the thing, the ideas that have transcended through history have been in their most simplistic form. There's another book, I think it's Ed Milet, has a book that he came out with called The Power of One More. Is that Ed Milet?
Yeah.
The Power of One More. I don't need to read that book to understand that concept. Obviously, reading the book will create value, but you get it, right? Just do one more. David Goggins says, whenever you think you're at your capacity, you're only 40% there. The power of one more is you're stronger than you think. There's another book called Make Your Bed. Make sure, start your morning with organization and a win. I never read that book, but I had a friend who read it and he was like, I didn't need to read this book. I get it. Make your bed. Could have saved myself hours, right? But the concept is what matters most. And think about how you communicate now. And what are you communicating? Because if you're communicating simple ideas, people get up on stages and communicate simple ideas. They don't get up on stages and say a bunch of jargon and complicated stuff and confuse the audience. They captivate the audience with an idea.
That's true. Very true. Well, with all this, this realizations and this perspective that you've already established through, reading and through your own journey of your entrepreneurial career, what allowed you to start? What was your start in the entrepreneurial space?
I used to be a teacher and I burned out. I loved it. It was great, but I burned out. And
what did you teach?
So high school band, music. Yeah. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to make my millions in real estate. And so I went and I got a real estate license, and I got my broker, and I signed up, and I was ready to go in July of 2008. And then I realized that nobody could get a loan, and nobody could sell their house for what they paid for it. And also, I didn't have any sales skills at all. So it was a total disaster, man. Like, it basically ruined me financially. But what it did is it made me figure out, because I wasn't going to go back to teaching. It made me figure out what I needed to do next. So I went and tried to find some jobs. Nobody's hiring at this time because the economy is in the toilet. And so I had this brand new shiny computer. And so I opened it up one day and I typed in something really stupid like how to make money online. And spoiler alert, you will not find the answer that you look for if you type that into the internet, especially today. Might have been a little easier back then. But what I did find was I found a lot of people talking about it. And I found some people who were saying interesting things that I had never seen before and never thought before and never realized. And so that process introduced me to mentors. And I started reading books and I started learning. And I did eventually get a job at a call center. And I was fortunate to have a great sales trainer who taught me how to sell. And I leveraged that into the next job, until I had enough skills to actually help somebody else's business grow their sales. And once that happened and I got a paycheck for it, I was like, whoa, somebody's going to pay me to do this? Great. Then it was over. Like, I'm completely unemployable at this point.
So do you think that, if someone is looking to, get into the entrepreneurial space, because I know the entrepreneurial space can be overglorified at times, especially with social media. But what is your take on, becoming an employee or being an entrepreneur before an entrepreneur, to develop the skills and the mindset, needed?
Over the years, I've run into a lot of people who have struggled, especially trying to be entrepreneurs, especially trying to get their business off the ground. And I've gotten both sides of the spectrum in terms of advice from other people. I've gotten people who've said, if you got a paycheck, don't give up your paycheck until it just doesn't make sense for you to take that paycheck anymore. Keep that security as long as you can because it keeps your options open. And then I've also gotten the other side of the advice, which is burn the boats. Just make yourself figure it out. And I can't tell you that one or the other is the right answer. I can tell you that I've followed both of them, and both of them have worked for me in different situations. One thing that will be either frustrating about me or refreshing about me, Devin, is I'll never actually tell you what to do, and I'll never really take a hard stance on anything. And the reason for that is the answer is always, it depends. And it could, if you're in a situation to where the security of a paycheck helps you blossom into whatever you need to be, there's no shame in going and taking a job and getting a check. Nobody's going to give you take away your entrepreneur gold stars. Nobody cares, right? Go get a job and do what you need to do if that's what you need in order to create the opportunity to grow. No problem. On the other hand, if that job is keeping you in a place of comfort and it's keeping you from taking the risk you need in order to grow, then you got to go the other way and you got to burn the boats. Which of those is right? I've learned over time, man, people are way smarter than they give themselves credit for. And they can trust themselves to make the right decision. As long as they have all the information, you can decide what's best. If you know that you're tired of churning through the same thing, and you know that the security of that paycheck is what's holding you back, burn the boats. On the other hand, if you're addicted to food and shelter, and you know that you're not going to have any running your business for a while, and you know it will be helpful to have that paycheck coming in so that you can focus, go get the job. Even if you burned the boats before and it didn't work, just go get the paycheck. There's no shame in that. Nobody's gonna take away your rank. Promise.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think that's really powerful. Because it isn't always one key for every lock for this game of being an entrepreneur. And in certain cases, yes, burn the boats, but I would have to say too that make sure before you burn the boats, at least you have an idea of where you're going to go with it, because you burn the boats and you don't have an idea and you're just like, I'm going to do something. You're starting already with a step back. But I do agree it's burn the boats, or it's, use the job until you don't need it anymore. But if the job is holding you back in terms of your business or idea growing because you're putting so much time into your actual job, then it's like one of those things where you have to kind of equate like what is more valuable, or do I want to take that jump? What do you think that holds people back from just taking that jump and being held back by that paycheck?
I went to, I'll give you one more book here. So there's this book called Habits of a Happy Brain by Dr. Loretta Brunning. Highly recommended. And she talks about the impacts of the reward chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins on your behavior and your decision making. She spent 30 years observing the behavior patterns of apes, and she's got all this science behind it. So she actually came, I'm in Austin, Texas. She came to Austin a while ago, and we had an afternoon together. We sat and ate dinner. It was great. And we hosted this little small group, and there was a guy in the group, and I had brought up a topic. The topic was about the caveman, because we're all cavemen. The caveman being afraid to walk out of his cave. It's warm. It's safe. I've got some food to eat. Why would I leave the cave? And at what point do I decide I have to leave the cave because resources are dwindling? This is no longer an ideal place. I got a growing family, whatever. At some point, I have to cross a threshold of risk, and I have to make a decision. And then one person made this comment that I will never forget. It changed my life. This was recently, and that's saying a lot. I'm not trying to, this is not hyperbole, okay? But this guy said, it all has to do with the reversibility of risk. The reversibility of risk. When somebody's contemplating making a decision, if they're thinking about buying some coaching program, or if they're thinking about buying a car or a house or getting married, their brain, maybe even subconsciously, is thinking, if I make this decision and I'm wrong, can I back out of it safely? Your brain, for every decision you're making, especially the ones where you're uncertain, it is contemplating and calculating the reversibility of that risk that you're taking. Blew my mind, dude. He put in 4 words something that I could not properly understand and explain for years. The reversibility of risk. And what I'm in where that really comes from is, if we're about to make a decision, when we make that decision, are we going to regret or not be able to recover from the decision that we had made before? Are we going to be at risk of loss from that decision that we made before? Or are we going to get the reward? But we're not even thinking about the reward. We're thinking about protecting ourselves from that risk. So these 4 words changed everything for me. The reversibility of risk. Reversibility, one word. And here's what it really comes down to. we're constantly making decisions and we're assessing risk. Our brain is wired to do one thing really, really well. You know what it is, Devin?
What's that?
Survive. That's it. It's not designed to do anything else except survive. And I can prove that here in this book. Serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin. So just a quick rundown. So each of these chemicals serves a purpose that enhances your chances of survival.
Right.
Dopamine is the basic reward chemical. It's like the little Johnny chemical. Like, yay, little Johnny made his poops in the diaper, like it's a reward for doing something that will enhance your chances of survival. Hey, good job. You ate that plant, not the poisonous one that will kill you. You ate the one that was good. Dopamine. Eating food creates a dopamine rush. So that's dopamine. It's a basic reward chemical. And it's your brain saying, good job. That's going to help us stay alive. Now, oxytocin, on the other hand, we're going to call that the community chemical, the herd chemical. When you make a joke with somebody and you laugh, it creates this oxytocin response. When you have a partner, your boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever, and you're close to them and you feel that rush of warmth, that's oxytocin. When you go and join a networking group or a mastermind, or you go and see your family, that puts you in the herd. If you're in the herd, there's less of a chance that a predator is going to attack you. That's oxytocin. It's a chemical reward that's saying, yeah, good job. That's going to help you survive. Serotonin is what we call the one-up chemical. As human beings, we're constantly trying to increase our status in some way. You brought this up at the beginning. Like people that use fancy words or buy flashy cars, they're looking for that serotonin boost of saying, I'm better than you. That's a survival mechanism, because when you're in the tribe, who's got the best chance of survival in the tribe?
Who's strong?
The leader. Yeah, the strongest guy, the leader, the one that's the best. They have the best chance of survival. That's a serotonin boost. And then finally, endorphins are like your natural painkillers. You get out into the field, you get away from the tribe, and you get mauled by a saber-toothed tiger and he like chops your leg off. That hurts. But then you get this rush of endorphins that numbs the pain just long enough for you to crawl yourself back to the cave so that you can be safe and you got a better chance of surviving. See, all these chemicals are just trying to keep you alive. And the reversibility of risk is a defense mechanism that's trying to keep you alive, because your brain is convinced that if you buy this timeshare and you're wrong, it's going to kill you. Your brain doesn't think about anything any other way. It's like, this is going to kill us if we get it wrong. We can't really retrain it, but we can understand it. And we can start being conscious of the feelings that we have. And when we're placed in this situation where it's like, I don't know, man, that's normal. It doesn't mean that it's the wrong decision. It just means that your survival brain's kicking in, trying to protect you and assessing that reversibility of risk.
Do you think with that, the reversibility of risk, that since it's a natural thing, and I know we all do it, subconsciously, do you think that there is a skill to basically be done so that you're not overdoing that, or someone that is too hesitant or looking at all the things that can go wrong versus, looking at the opportunity of the risk?
Here's the best way I can put it. If you're 80% confident that you're making the right decision, just make the decision. I've run into so many people that have said, oh man, I'm 99% there. It's just this one little thing, and it's never that one thing. And if it is that one thing, just think about this. You've walked 1,000 miles, and the finish line and the glory and all the pretty ladies and all the food that you can eat are right on the other side of this little dip in front of you. It's like a little gap in the ground, just a little gap. And you're looking at it and you're thinking, what happens if I go and take this last step and I fall in that gap and die? And the chances of you falling in that gap and dying are pretty slim, because it's only like yay wide. It's about as wide as your foot. So it's technically possible. But you've walked 1,000 miles. You've never fallen into a gap before. It's unlikely that you're not going to be able to control your next step, that you pick up your foot and you have no idea where it's going to land. Maybe the floor just vaporizes under us and I fall into an infinite abyss. Well, the chances of that happening are not zero, I guess. But the chances of you picking up your foot and predictably landing it where you want it to on the other side of that gap are really high. And so what happens is we go 1,000 miles and we get to this gap and we stop and we start thinking of all the things that could go wrong as we cross this gap. Because our brain is filtering out everything else. It's only focusing on the risk. So if you get yourself all the way to the gap, you got to count on yourself to follow through, cross that gap, and believe that all of the past history that's happened for you that has not killed you up to this point is not going to start killing you now. You're probably not going to die. Just take the step. That's only if it feels 80% right, 90%, I'm 99% of the way there, then go. 99's not enough. Will Smith says 99 is pretty much the same as 0. If you're going to do 99, go ahead and stay home. And so if you can get 80% or more confident that this is the right way, you need to be doing it. Or you need to go get a job, sitting at a desk to where you don't have any risks at all. And you get your secure paycheck, you go home, there's no shame in that. But if you want to run a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have to take some calculated risks. Calculated is like, I'm reasonably confident that this is the right way to go. But even if it's not, here's the most important thing, Devin. Even if it's not, I'm always going to bet on myself to be able to recover. I'm always going to count on myself to figure out a way out of any situation, no matter how bad it gets. It's probably not going to kill me.
I think that's a huge right there. I was actually going to mention that too. When you're talking about the dip and the gap, it's so even if you're 80% sure or more, right? Even if you're 75, whatever the case is, you also have to have the confidence in yourself to take that risk and realize, even if it doesn't go according to plan, that you still have other options to overface the obstacles that are going to come if it goes wrong for the first one, right? So it's not always going to go according to plan in any business or any, journey in life, but your ability to take the risk and then realize if it doesn't work, I'll face the next thing that comes as it comes.
That's right. Yeah. It's like, here's the thing, like here's the best thing that you can think. If you keep running into like, I'm tired of getting burned. Everything I've ever joined has been a scam. Nothing's ever worked out for me. First of all, there's only one thing that all of those situations have in common. What is it?
It's you.
It's you. Once you realize that, and you're like, oh, you know what? They're not going to rip me off. They don't have a bad business model. They aren't trying to scam me. I'm not following through. Everything that you can do, well, I mean, there's scams out there, okay? It's pretty, and I've been in them, and I've paid for them. But I found my way out, and I got smarter. So it's like, you're probably not going to die. If that's the only thing that's rattling your head, next time you're faced with a difficult decision, is me saying, hey, you're probably not going to die. Okay, that's all the confidence I can give you.
No, I agree. And that's the thing too, is like those journeys that you're saying, like you have to realize that the opportunity only works if you actually take action on the opportunity. Like the hustle, the grind, the rewards don't just get handed to you, right? They come in the same fashion as you work or earn them. So if you just think that you're going to start a business and it's going to be, envelopes arriving at your door with checks in them every single day right out the gate, like, that's not the case. But if you're not doing actions day after day to try to get there, the only thing that is the issue is yourself, right?
Indeed.
So with that, what's the one lesson, or, it's already been so much knowledge thus far, but in your own journey of being an entrepreneur, what is that one key takeaway that you learned or had to learn the hard way?
Wow, that's a big question, man. And if I'd have prepared for this, I'd come up with some eloquent answer. But now that you put me on the spot, if I had to say the one thing that I've learned that is really key to success, aside from what I just said, it would be to go and pay whatever price to replicate the success of someone else. I spent and wasted years and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars trying to reinvent wheels. And I refused to just follow the path that somebody else had already laid in front of me. And that cost me dearly. And it wasn't until I realized, you lose no pride, because it was pride. You lose no pride in just following somebody else's process so that you can make the money and then eventually do whatever you want. But you got to get results first. So if you're going into real estate like I did, I tried to reinvent the wheel of real estate, and I didn't know jack, man. Like, I didn't know anything. I should have just done what my broker told me to do and call expired leads. And if you're going into insurance sales, that's a tough gig. But there's people out there who crush it selling insurance. Go and find them, pay whatever they charge, do whatever they say until you've replicated those results. Then that's when you can start doing your own thing. If you're going to start a business, a retail shop, a restaurant, a consulting company, accounting firm, whatever it is, somebody else has already crushed it. Copy what they do, step by step, word for word. Steal like an artist. Pay them however much they charge you to get their insights, to get their processes, to get their step by step. Here's how I built my business. Copy it. Go and do what somebody else has already done until it doesn't make sense anymore.
Wow. That is deep. And honestly, I agree with that 100%. That is where like the true key of saving time essentially and heartache, and headache is really going to come from. Like you said, it is a sense of, you want to be the first that created this, and I get it. But it's one of those things where other people have probably done it, and it'll save you years of just bashing your head against the wall, and you can start succeeding a lot faster. That's awesome. Where can people connect with you?
I'm on all social media at JT Literally. And if you are running a small business and you've got some sales already, if you're brand new, starting out, and you haven't done anything, I don't know that I can help you. But if you've got some momentum and you're doing 20, 30, 50K a month or more, let's have a conversation. I can probably help you put some systems in place to get you to 100, 200, 300K within about 90 days. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to factor1.io.
Factor1.io. I'll definitely put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today. Honestly, I do appreciate the time, and I definitely enjoyed connecting with you again, since being on your podcast as well. Make sure you guys share the show, leave a review, and share this with a friend that, honestly just needs that mindset shift or that perspective change. This episode was filled with crazy knowledge, like I promised in the beginning, so thank you again, Josh, for taking the time.
You got it.